No, Zora Arkus Duntov means no mid-engined Corvette. Today's modern Corvette may have ended up in the scrap pile of good ideas that never went anywhere if it hadn't been for an immigrant with sketchy spelling. Zora Arkus Duntov, a Russian born in Belgium who came to America on the eve of World War II, managed to work his way into General Motors and became both the car's first chief engineer and the first champion of the mid-engined Corvette. Harley Earl, father of the Corvette, rightly stands in first place in the car's history, but Arkus Duntov is right behind him. He led the push to make the Corvette a real sports car with fuel injection, an independent rear suspension, and four-wheel disc brakes. Zora Arkus was born on December 25, 1909, in Brussels, Belgium, to parents of Russian Jewish descent. He would later add Duntov to his last name as a tribute to his stepfather. He studied engineering in Germany but preferred hands-on work to the theoretical, a preference that would become a hallmark of his career. From Germany he moved to Paris. After war broke out in Europe in 1939, he enlisted in the French Air Force. Upon France's surrender, he left for the United States with his wife, Elfie, his younger brother, Yura, and their mother and stepfather. Once settled in New York City, Arkus Duntov served as an engineering consultant, eventually forming the Arden for Arkus Duntov Mechanical Corporation. As the war effort increased, so too did Arden's military contracts and its profits. After the war, Arkus Duntov set about finding a new way to make a living, including designing a kit to convert flathead Ford V8s to an overhead valve setup, a failed attempt to race in the Indianapolis 500, working with Sidney Allard in England, and racing at Le Mans in 1952. In the fall of that year, he and Elfie moved back to New York. The course was set. Everything was about to change. In January 1953, General Motors brought its traveling Motorama to the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. Far more than mere auto shows, Motorama showcased a collection of concept and production cars, extravagant displays, orchestras, and stage productions. It was there that Arkus Duntov saw the car that would forever be associated with him, slowly revolving on a turntable, Corvette. He was transfixed by its low-slung, sexy shape, but a quick review of its technical specifications revealed that the car was more show than go. Mechanically, it stunk, Arkus Duntov related later in his typically blunt style, with its six-cylinder engine and two-speed automatic transmission. But visually, it was superb. On January 28, he sent GM an enthusiastic letter saying that he found the Chevrolet sports car breathtaking and that, in his view, this is the turning point from which European body designer can look for inspiration to Detroit. Clearly Arkus Duntov's enthusiasm had short-circuited his spelling abilities. He even managed to misspell the last name of the letter's recipient, Maurice Ollie, repeatedly spelling it here and in future correspondence as Ollie. After a bit of negotiating, Arkus Duntov was hired and started at Chevrolet on May 1, 1953. Arkus Duntov makes his mark. Gradually but methodically, Arkus Duntov set about transforming Corvette from an underpowered showboat to a performance car that could compete with the best from Europe. In 1955, the anemic 150 horsepower six-cylinder was replaced by the 265 cubic inch V8, the original iteration of the legendary small block. In 1957, its displacement was increased to 283 cubic inches, and GM's first application of mechanical fuel injection helped it attain the magic number of 1 horsepower per cubic inch of displacement. Despite these improvements, Arkus Duntov was well aware of the limitations imposed by the Corvette's front-engine, rear-wheel drive setup. In 1960, he introduced the SERV, Chevrolet Engineering Research Vehicle, a test vehicle with a mid-engine V8, rear-wheel drive, and an open-wheel body. SERV evolved into SERV-2 in 1964, again with a mid-engine V8 and all-wheel drive, separate automatic transmissions and torque converters for each end of the engine, and enclosed wheel bodywork. Arkus Duntov tested the SERV-2 at GM's Milford Proving Ground and recorded a 0 to 60 mph time of 2.8 seconds and a top speed of 214.01 miles per hour. Arkus Duntov's hopes for a chance to race the SERV-2 at Le Mans were dashed when GM management granted the honor to Jim Hall and his chaparrals instead for the 1966 24-hour event. Arkus Duntov nonetheless continued to advocate for a mid-engined Corvette, citing competition from Ford's upcoming Pantera. But in 1968 his proposal was shot down again. Taking no for an answer was never Arkus Duntov's strong suit. This time he took the front-wheel drive setup from the Oldsmobile Toronado Cadillac Eldorado, placed it amidships, and located the V8 engine transversely, with the automatic transmission on one side and the differential on the other. All-wheel drive could be made possible in the future by adding a front differential and a drive shaft. The car, under code name XP882, debuted at the 1970 New York Auto Show. In that hurry to prepare the car for the show, there wasn't time to come up with a name, so it was simply labeled Corvette Prototype. Despite the sensation it created, GM once again snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, deciding the car would be too expensive to produce and would not offer any gains in performance versus the front-engined Corvette. In the best Arcus Duntov tradition, he remained undaunted. By 1974, and with his mandatory retirement in 1975 looming, he mounted one last campaign for a mid-engined Corvette. At the same time, GM President Ed Cole was looking for a way to showcase the Wankel rotary engine, to which GM had recently purchased rights. Cole and Arcus Duntov agreed to create another concept car based on the XP882, this time with a 4-rotor Wankel engine and a snazzy new name, Aerovette. It boasted an even more aerodynamic shape, with a drag coefficient of 0.325, gull-wing doors, and an engine output of 360 to 370 horsepower.